Hey, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday morning, November 8th. It's early. This is being recorded at 4:40 a.m., actually going out live. And I'm going to give a quick update with what's happened overnight. Maybe a fortuitous development for South Florida. I don't know, but we'll talk about it all. Of course, if you like the videos, please be sure to click the like, subscribe, and notification buttons. And also, please be sure to share with your friends. So let's get right to it. No need to waste anybody's time this morning. So first off, I always like to start off with what I call the tropical threats and hurricane preps graphic. And basically that indicates the area where preparations for hurricane conditions would most likely need to be made. And that's the red area here. So it's the Northwest Bahamas, including Nassau on New Providence, as well as Eleuthera, the Berries, Bimini, Abaco, as well as Grand Bahama. And then on the east coast of Florida, it's basically from Palm Beach County north to just south of the Cape there, which does include Melbourne. So that's really the area this morning that is still thinking of really like full-scale hurricane preparations. What I mean by that is evacuations, although there could be some evacuations on up the Florida coast necessary there. So that's something we're going to be watching as we go forward here, is this possibility for coastal evacuations. I don't think we're going to see any evacuation requirements here in South Florida. There is going to be probably some high tidal flooding that is going to cause maybe limited access to roads, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal where lots and lots of folks need to plan on evacuation. That being said, it's never a bad idea to know, do you or do you not live in an evacuation zone. In case the evacuation order is given, then you know exactly that you live in it, number one. And number two, have a plan to evacuate. What's that mean? Basically, it means just get out of the evacuation zone. You don't have to flee the state, just get out of the zone. All right, so what's been happening this morning, and you can kind of see it here, it shows up on the plots there, is that Nicole, which was forecast, of course, to make this jog up to the north and then turn back to the southwest and then turn back to the north. So kind of this slalom course, tropically speaking here, of where it's supposed to go like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then turn off to the northeast. So overnight, Nicole has made a bit of a jog to the north, and you can see it in the little fixes right there. Each one of these little points is a fix, we call it, because it's like either a satellite derived or a hurricane hunter derived, or in some cases it's a buoy derived location of where the center of the system is. And you can see it was going, kind of making this gradual turn to the left here, and then it took a little bit of a wobble or a jog to the right here, and that has basically taken this track, which was kind of like that, and then over, and it has shifted the whole thing up a little bit. So now we've got our track, and I'll show you this in just a second in the models, that is a little bit farther to the north because of that. We're also seeing that this turn over in this area right here, that turn is starting to show up in the models as less of a turn to the southwest now. So as opposed to kind of like that action, it's more like that action, kind of a westerly motion. So in effect, what that's doing is it's taking some of the pressure in terms of the threat for hurricane conditions away from South Florida. And when I say South Florida, because I know lots of folks all the way up into the Treasure Coast consider themselves South Florida. Specifically, it's taking the pressure away in terms of tropical or hurricane conditions away from the Keys, away from Miami-Dade, away from Broward, and in essence, a little bit away from Palm Beach too, Palm Beach County. It still exists farther up the coast. It's basically Palm Beach north up there towards the Cape and maybe Daytona Beach. And we might even see that red area kind of extending to the north there as we go forward into time. This is what I'm talking about right here. Because if the track shifts north, then of course that threat for hurricane conditions goes to the north. Now, even though the west coast of Florida has gone under tropical storm watches this morning and may see some tropical storm winds, the threat's very low. In fact, the threat is zero for hurricane over here on the west coast. That being said, I know from Sarasota down through even Manatee County, but basically Sarasota south through Lee, Charlotte County, on into Collier County, because of the damage that was done, any type of wind situation is not good. And this is still going to be a bit of a wind situation, but not quite as bad as I think we could have been looking at a little bit earlier. All right, so let's go forward and let's look at the 4 a.m. This is 4 a.m. as of Tuesday morning, the latest Hurricane Center forecast. And of course, what you can notice right away, and let me just kind of get it going here, is you can see that big yellow area. That, of course, is the extent of the tropical storm conditions, and they begin to get closer to us and arrive here basically later tonight and tomorrow, Wednesday. This little reddish area here, that is where there is the possibility of hurricane conditions. It begins to grow basically after tonight into the northwest Bahamas there. And so that's kind of our hurricane area. This is our tropical storm area. Does this mean that everybody in this area right here is going to see 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds with gusts to 60? No. It just means that we're going to start seeing more sustained or more tropical storm gusts, I should say. So gusts well over 40 miles an hour. And that's going to increase during the day later today and tomorrow, and I'll break that down for you in just a second as well. Of course, there's the cone, the legacy cone, as I like to call it. It's that little area there. It's where a point is expected to stay 2/3 of the time, the center point. It doesn't represent the storm in any way in terms of its size. It's just a one-dimensional little point. So in this case, the storm extends well outside of the cone, and the cone here basically within 3 days, especially a bigger storm, is kind of basically useless. It really doesn't tell us anything here. Okay, so let's go forward here. So this is and we'll kind of talk about our time positions here. So here's this afternoon. There is after midnight tonight. There is tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and then there is just after midnight tomorrow night. So this is the Wednesday night time frame here. And you can see the Hurricane Center is still forecasting a Category 1 hurricane. Could be a very strong tropical storm, and you can see this little reddish area there. That's the tropical storm conditions. But you'll notice now that this forecast point here is moved a little bit farther to the north in this latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. So what that has done is it's taken our southwest track here, and also it's no longer quite going as far to the west. So there's our southwest segment, and then our turn may be taking place a little bit sooner, or at least the whole track has shifted a little bit to the north. So in essence, it's pulling that to the north away from South Florida. If you watched last night's video that I did, you could see the tropical storm conditions up into the upper Keys. Now the tropical storm conditions are only in Miami-Dade. The hurricane conditions are well to the north now of South Florida based on this advisory. Could it shift back to the south? Yes, absolutely. It could shift back to the south. We could see that after it makes this turn back to the southwest, it goes pretty hard to the southwest for a while, and then that results in the track kind of being pulled to the south like that. It's a possibility, but certainly there's no bad news for South Florida in the morning advisory, and that's kind of like the way we like to be. We don't want to be in a situation where each advisory comes in and like, well, that's not good. So this is not bad news. I hate to call it good news yet, but at least it's not bad news, right? So there is, once again, there's the Wednesday night time frame. Here we are into Thursday afternoon rather. And you can see now the forecast track has also shifted a little bit away from the Eastern Gulf. I don't think there's really going to be an intensification problem here in the Eastern Gulf in terms of it getting stronger again, because the water's pretty cool over here. But what happens is that there's less friction over the water, and so there's the possibility of the tropical storm winds, especially over the water here in the Eastern Gulf. I think we'll see some tropical storm gusts in this whole yellow area here, and that does include Ian-ravaged southwest Florida. So certainly gusts over 40 miles an hour right on the edge of the cone here, this yellow area. But in terms of blowing 40, gusting to 60, it's less likely. It is more likely that we'll see gusts over 40, sustained winds of 40 with gusts over 60, mainly along and north of the track here, especially near the east central Florida coast there, Treasure Coast and Space Coast. I think that's where the highest threat of these 60-mile-an-hour winds with gusts to 80 are probably pretty likely. Are we going to see sustained hurricane force winds in here? That's, of course, 75, and then you get the gust up to 90. I don't know. It's going to be a close call. And so this all is going to kind of play into our role of what are we thinking. There we are for Thursday night. And so tropical storm, probably gusts, maybe some tropical storm winds into North Florida, and then it's on to the north and northeast There's the Friday night into Saturday time frame, and you can see the whole yellow tropical storm area is very, very small here. The latest watches and warnings. So this is kind of, and I like this thinking here. There was some discussion last night. We were talking about was there an issue with what the Hurricane Center was doing, the way that they put out their watches and warnings here. So of course we have the hurricane warnings for the Northwest Bahamas, including Nassau. For Andros Island, we have the tropical storm warning. And then if you kind of picture, like if you say, I'm thinking the best way to explain this. So if you say the highest threat for hurricane conditions kind of goes like that, right there, then but you know there's going to be tropical storm conditions kind of outside of that area like that, then that's kind of the way you run your watches, right? Because with the highest threat, you'd have your hurricane watch, which is where it is, includes Broward and goes on up the coast there. And then, when the hurricane watch, remember, means the possibility of hurricane conditions. But the tropical storm warning means the expectation or the likelihood. So basically, we're expecting tropical storm conditions, including Broward there, where the warning is. But there's the possibility, not the expectation, just the possibility of hurricane conditions. So I kind of really like what they did with their watch warning layout here. Now, tropical storm watch for Miami-Dade. Tropical storm watch also now for the West Coast, and that does include Fort Myers area and runs all the way up the West Coast. And this mainly is because there could be some tropical storm winds there right along the West Coast. So that's kind of the thinking there. So the way it looks this morning is, we're feeling pretty good about this. Sorry, we're not feeling worse about this morning. We do have the storm surge warning that basically is from North Palm Beach all the way up the coast into southeast Georgia. We are still under a storm surge watch in Broward and the rest of Palm Beach County. But I think the main storm surge threat is going to be where the center of Nicole comes ashore and to the north. So, and that's kind of in that warning area right there. So basically that's kind of where we stand this morning. If you want to jump off, you can. Of course, no need to stick around. But we're going to talk about a little bit about the shutters and things like that here. And I'm going to kind of stick that into our deeper dive segment and also what you should be doing as we go forward through the day. So here is kind of the breakdown. This was, and actually I'm going to have to skip this because I did not update the words in that graphic, but that's okay because you'll get the message here. So basically our preps today in South Florida, in the Keys, Miami-Dade, and Broward are basically just tropical storm preps now. Of course, there's the hurricane watch for Broward, but in Miami-Dade, the Keys, and Broward, especially Miami-Dade and Broward, we're preparing for tropical storm conditions. Tropical storm conditions we typically think of as power outages. So there's the possibility of power outages, not widespread, long-duration power outages, but some spotty power outages. You don't, your home may be hit with power outages, and it happens because of trees coming down and things like that, and stress on the infrastructure. Also, cleaning up things that could blow around because it's going to be pretty windy. So in terms of Miami-Dade and Broward, cleaning up yard items that could blow around. If you have a boat, there's going to be some pretty good tidal swings here with the pressure of the wind blowing on shore. And then in that case, you'd want to maybe run extra dock lines. If you have exposure to the northeast or north, I think you kind of want to protect your boat more likely there. Maybe double up on the fenders, keep it off the dock, things like that. So what we're looking at here is this is the tropical storm gusts. And so there's the center out there. And because of high pressure that's up here in the southeast U.S. and the low pressure down here with Nicole, there's a pretty strong pressure difference. And that pressure difference is creating very strong northeast winds. So that's the wind direction there, kind of blowing like that. And it's over a big area, and we call that big area a fetch. So what's happening is we have a long fetch of strong northeasterly winds, and that's creating some big waves that are coming down. It's also kind of pushing the water back against the coast, which is helping to raise the tides at a time of normally high tides. So we've got a lot going on here. But the main thing we're concerned with this graphic is is that if we had to put up shutters, we don't want it to be too windy to put up shutters. It's going to be pretty breezy today, but right now we're looking good. And let's talk a little bit about that shutter question. For Miami-Dade, as I said yesterday, no. Yesterday, I was also saying for Broward, it was iffy, meaning that, you know, if shutters were really easy, and especially if you were north of 595 and you wanted to, if you wanted to put up shutters on one side of your house, it'd be mainly like the north side or the northeast and northwest facing side, because we know that the center is going to track to the north of South Florida. Let me just draw that out real quickly. I know it's early. You folks seem to be wide awake this morning. That's great. So as the center comes over here, the winds are initially going to be blowing northeast and then north and then northwest. So if you're like, I kind of want to just protect the side of my house where the winds are blowing, it would be the north side, northeast, north, or northwest here in South Florida, south of the forecast track. But in Broward now, because this shift to the north, it's becoming less probably recommended or necessary to put up shutters unless you're like right in northern Broward, right on the Palm Beach County line, and you're like, I just would feel better doing it, then fine. If you have hanging shutters, and you want to just do the north side of your house, fine, but you're going to need to do it early today, because my whole point here is that as we go through the day, these really strong wind gusts are going to start to work their way toward the coast. These are the wind gusts over 40 miles an hour. There's 7 a.m., there's noon. So now we're seeing wind gusts over 40 miles an hour here along the coast, and this is not good weather for putting shutters up. So you folks on up the coast, basically Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie on up, Indian River, as well as Volusia, you're definitely going to want to, if you're going to put the shutters up, get it done this morning. There's still that threat for hurricane conditions here, but the threat is not increasing. Let me put it that way. It's kind of staying the same there. In Broward, though, my feeling right now is I don't think this is going to be a shutter event. And remember, a shutter event is a hurricane conditions, which is basically the winds blowing 60 to 70 miles an hour and gusting to 80 or 90, and you have things blowing in the air that could break your windows and let the wind in your house. That's why you put up shutters. And I never discourage people from putting up shutters if it makes you feel better, even if it's not expected to be a hurricane. But the thinking is just that the threshold is a hurricane. And so Miami-Dade, no. The Keys, no. Broward, probably not going to see a hurricane here. So if you're like on the fence, I'm leaning towards no. Personally, I live in western Broward. I'm leaning towards no, but I'm going to make sure everything that can blow around is taken care of. Palm Beach County, I think southern Palm Beach County, it's iffy. I think northern Palm Beach County, probably leaning more towards it, as well as Martin and St. Lucie counties. So as we go on up the coast, that's kind of the shutter area there. And then as we go through the day here, you can see really a big, strong fetch of these northeasterly winds really blowing right up to the coast. This is really going to pile the water up. The storm surges and just tidal surge is going to be really a big deal from Palm Beach County north. You can just, if you imagine really strong winds blowing over a big area, it's really piling the water in there. So, and then there we go through midnight tonight, and then tomorrow morning, and you can see the winds blowing pretty good, and now starting to they're blowing pretty good across the entire state now. I know this red area ends here at the coast. That's because this computer product here, graphic, is really the surface winds, and so you don't have quite as high winds because of the friction of the land. But over the open water, it's really going to be blowing hard. Let's see, going from there, let's do the deeper dive into, there we are, by the way, Wednesday evening. You can see the winds blowing pretty good across the coast too. So what has happened overnight? A couple of things. We had that little jog to the north. Also, we're starting to see what looks like the beginnings of Nicole acquiring tropical characteristics, transitioning from subtropical into tropical. You can make out the big circulation there, and you can also now start to see this area of thunderstorms starting to blow up here towards the center, and they're fairly persistent. They're not just like going up once and then going away, going up once and going away. And because this area here, the center, is also buried underneath of the bigger low pressure area, the wind shear is now decreasing. Really, the limiting factor in terms of intensification, one would be the size, it's still relatively small, but two would be the nearby dry air. And let me show you that in the, that's the model tracks. Actually, I guess I didn't plan on showing you the dry air. So here's the dry air, and you can see that teal color down there, that's all very dry air. That is right on the edge of the circulation there. So Nicole's going to be fighting off some dry air today. That's going to limit the intensification. But as these thunderstorms get wrapped on more around there, that's where we're going to see the intensification start to go. All right, so let's talk about the model tracks, and then we'll wrap it up here. No need to spend the whole morning here since folks getting their days together. I know lots of questions. What about schools on Wednesday? I don't know, or Thursday. I'm saying it's less likely they will be canceled, but I'm not the school administrator. I don't know. When I lived up north, I remember people would ask me, what about a snow day tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know. They have got to go out and check the roads. So here are the models this morning, and they're in pretty good agreement. The H-Mon model was kind of modeling a funny-looking storm. It was kind of big. But basically, through tomorrow morning, there's this turn to the west and southwest. If the center gets farther to the north up here, then all of those lines also go farther to the north. So if Nicole ends up here, then all of those track lines also come up to the north. They'll probably still have that southwest shift in it, but they will also move to the north. If Nicole suddenly turns to the west, that's okay because we've got that in the models. Those the models are showing it more moving west. So it's moving a little bit to the right of its forecast. That's Wednesday morning, and then there we go into early Thursday morning. So you can see the Hurricane Center's forecast there, their tracks. And our southernmost model here looks like it's the European this morning, right there. The GFS, the American model, has shifted a little bit back to the north. And right in there, and it's kind of hard to see. Maybe I can zoom in. So yeah. So, because the storm is much bigger than a point, and these lines only track points, but I just kind of want to show you that number one, the white area, the white line right there, that is a consensus model, so that's kind of the blend of all these models together. And the Hurricane Center relies heavily on that because research has shown that the models, when they're used with each other, tend to do better than the models alone, unless you have one model that is kind of crazy and doing its own thing. We kind of saw that with Ian, where the GFS and a few of its children models, because the H-Mon and the H-Wharf are initialized off the GFS, all kind of pulled this consensus into the Eastern Gulf, when in fact some of the other models, which were pulling it towards Southwest Florida, even though they were correct, the average was off the coast of Florida back with Ian. So anyway, so we're back to this white line here. So we're feeling pretty good about this because we don't have any members that are way over here or way over here to the northeast. They're all basically kind of showing this west direction. Now this is going to make a bigger deal for folks along the east coast, north of South Florida. But south of these lines, and because this storm is probably going to be pretty lopsided with the north half being much worse than the south half, this is not a bad trend here at all for South Florida. Not a bad trend for Palm Beach either. All right, let's go forward here. And then the model now makes that turn. The Panhandle, still probably some tropical storm gusts there through North Florida. Also, the rainfall threat is going to be a big deal here. We sometimes forget to talk about that. I do. But the ground's really saturated from Ian a month and a half ago. And so that rainfall threat's going to be pretty big, and the flash flood threat's going to be big. And then basically the models just track kind of where that center goes up there. So I think that is enough talking from me for now. Let me put the cone back up, and I'll take a few questions. I need like a question and answer graphic that goes up, right? Let's advance this a little bit forward here. So there's the cone kind of crossing Florida. How's everybody doing this morning? Everybody's awake. Oh, it's after 5. How about that? Time flies when you are when you're busy. So good morning, folks. Let's see. Storm's definitely coming. Is the storm definitely coming? So I never use the word definitely with hurricanes or tropical storms. And when we talk about is a storm coming, does it mean are you going to have some winds? Are you going to have a hurricane? I would say right now that for Broward, and we'll lump Boca in there as well, probably not a hurricane, but definitely some strong winds. Let's see. Thanks for the liking the presentation. Early bird catches the worm. Good morning. That's right. I'm glad to wake up with you guys. And will they have school in Palm Beach tomorrow? I think so. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would think so, just because the worst of the weather doesn't get in until tomorrow night. Now, remember, there's always these considerations with a tropical system. Is it going to require evacuations, which cause schools to be closed, and then you have to not have school because they turn into evacuation centers? There's always that goes on. I don't think this is going to require big evacuations in Palm Beach County. In fact, minimal, maybe right up farther to the north in Stewart, of course, and Port St. Lucie and Melbourne. There probably will be some coastal, maybe even just voluntary evacuations. But I don't think that's going to be a big evacuation thing. Right. So the weather's on the north side of the landfall, right? And the north side of the track. If the model holds up, Boca's going to be south, right? So that's kind of a good situation. Exactly. So listen, thanks for joining me this morning. We'll do another one of these at say 9:45. I hate to start at 9:30, and because of the advisory, sometimes when there's changes, they don't put the advisory out until right at the top of the hour, and that's me talking for 25 minutes. Some questions. Okay, so let's do this real quickly because I'm getting some questions of when the worst is going to be. Let me throw up my timing graphic here. And we'll talk about when the worst is going to be. And this, so I've got a couple of things going on here because what happens is that this, the storm is so big, and because it's subtropical, one of the models that I use, the wind speed probabilities, doesn't do quite as good of a job. It over-exaggerates the bottom part of the storm and under-exaggerates the top. So it's over-exaggerating the south, it's under-exaggerating the north. It's also because there's high pressure to the north, creating that stronger wind field. So this is kind of the if you think of, am I in either of these yellow areas, or if I'm, I hate to call this a Venn diagram, but basically here we are. So through the day today, the tropical storm conditions aren't here, and then here we go. So after midnight tonight, they begin to arrive on the East Florida coast. They're in to Orlando tomorrow morning, and they are arriving in the Treasure Coast, the Space Coast, as we go through the day tomorrow. So once again, the preps need to be wrapped up by sunset today for just about all of the east coast of Florida. So you don't want to wait until tomorrow morning for a window of opportunity. So there we are at noon, and you can see the tropical storm conditions just skirting South Florida there. So the closest approach, the worst of the weather based on the National Hurricane Center track, and that little red thing there, that's the forecast for hurricane winds, is going to be Wednesday night for all of the east coast of Florida. So Wednesday night into Thursday morning, because there we are at sunrise. So the winds continue to build during the day tomorrow. Tomorrow night the winds continue to build, including South Florida. And then as we get into Thursday morning, now we're into the worst of it. But now the storm is decreasing in intensity as well. So so then the weather improves on Thursday. So the worst of it, Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and then begins to improve on Thursday on the East Coast. Central and North Florida, it's going to be kind of gets worse Wednesday night and stays bad on Thursday before it improves. And then by Friday, we're looking better like that. So early Thursday morning, yeah, that's a possibility. So, all right, guys, you know what? Yeah, Broward County rain amounts are lower. I think the highest chance for rain is going to be along and north of that track, which now it's shifting a little bit to the north. I mean, 2 to 4 inches is probably the high side in Broward County, but unfortunately 4 to 6 inches is probably the going to be the average where the track is and to the north. So, okay, guys, I will wrap it up here. Once again, just a reminder, if you like the videos, be sure to hit the like, subscribe button so that they get elevated on the platform and the notifications. And in Fort Myers, I don't think we're going to see that much rain there. So that's a good thing. I mean, an inch, of course, would be bad in Fort Myers. But have a good day, and I will see everybody at 9:45 this morning. We'll do the 10 o'clock advisory and hope that we continue to see not bad news, but news that we like to see. So I'll see you then. Have a good morning.